The portrait artist Gottfried Lindauer holds a special place in New Zealand history. He painted hundreds of subjects, many of them noted figures in the colony. But the work that has received most of the attention are his portraits of Māori from the 19th century. These paintings have provided a portal into our past.
I te wā e tamariki ana ia, ko tāna ingoa ko whetoi. No muri rawa, ka tangohia rā te ingoa ko Pomare. E kia rā tātou ko Pomare namarua, o Pomare te tuarua. His father was tautoro from Ngāti Heneira and Ngāti Rangi. Whetoi's mother, Heke, was a strong-willed Ngāti Manu woman. When her brother Pomare I died in Waikato, she said to her son, "Mau te tūranga ato matua, mau te rangatiratanga o te iwi." Mā tēnā anō a Pomare te tuarua, ka tangohia ia te rā ingoa. Ka moe ia I te pauaru o tana matu, ko te wahine nei a ihu mamau. She was named Waipa from the river where Pomare I was killed in Waikato. His next marriage was tātou paunamu to the daughter of Te Whatanui from Ngāti Raukawa, and her name was Te Rangi Ngangana. A wedding gift was given for that marriage, a mere paunamu, and it's here at our marae. Te Rangi Ngangana and Pomare II had 5 children. We all descend from those children. I tērā rautau anō la, ka neke hia te iwi o Ngāti Manu ki roto kororaraka. I tērā wā anō ka tai mai ngā kaipoke o tauiwi ki reira. Anaka timata te mahi hoko o Ngāti Manu ki ngā kaipoke, ki ngā tangata tauiwi. Ngāti Manu left that area and moved to Aotearoa and established their pā on the headland there at Ngapua. Pomare then set about establishing Aotearoa as the trading destination. He put James Clendon, the acting American consul, on his lands at Okiato, and Clendon established a trading station there, and so that all American whaling ships calling into the Bay of Islands bypassed Kororaraka and came to Aotearoa. Pomare collected tolls from each of the ships that anchored at Ngapua. The toll was 1 musket. At Otuihu Pā, he had 2 paparakauta called Eagles Inn and the Sailor's Return. He also provisioned the ships with food and other personal services. Pomare didn't sign the Treaty of Waitangi on the 6th of February 1840. He was actually very sceptical about it. He wasn't that convinced that the Crown would honour their part of the treaty. Our tūpuna said to Hobson, "He ngāwari te ki kua hau tō hoa, but I will give you 3 years to prove that you are." He didn't need 3 years. Within the year, Hobson had proved that he was no friend. He took the toll money of Pomare, and Pomare didn't get a licence for his 2 paparakauta. And then in 1845, the British sent a warship, and our tūpuna came down with a white flag. They took him back onto the deck, and then they jumped him. They chained him to the deck, burnt the pā, looted it. They took him back down to Auckland and imprisoned him for 3 months. He was later released with a stipulation that he not participate in the wars with Kawati and Heke. During his lifetime, our tūpuna Pomare II assisted Ngāti Porou, Ngāti Kahununu, living amongst Ngāti Manu, back to their homelands. Just before his death, he said to his family, "E kore taia koutou te maru, me whakahuki ara ngā iwi." His legacy is about actually looking after your people, looking after your whānau, looking after your hapu, and doesn't matter where they are from either. Mehe me kahuri I whānau mai ki tēnei au kahore au te noho I konei. Engari, koina hoki tāku mihi atu kia ia. E puta mai rā te tini o mātau. Ori te rā ki ngā whetu o te rangi, ko te kaha tini o ngā uri o Pomare te tuarua.
Gottfried Lindauer se narodil 5. ledna 1839. Narodil se Vojtěchu Lindauerovi, který byl správce arciděkanských zahrad v Plzni, a jeho matka Maria, rozená Šmidová. Plzeň byla součástí, bylo poměrně velké město v českých zemích. České země byly součástí rakouské monarchie. Lindauer vlastně vyrůstal v prostředí tedy té arciděkanské zahrady, což ho zřejmě do určité míry ovlivnilo. Píše o tom ve svých vzpomínkách. Stejně tak vzpomíná na to, jak vlastně jako malý chlapec si hrál a dováděl v nedaleké Mži, řece, která prochází Plzní. U Gottfrieda Lindauera se velmi záhy objevil umělecký talent.
Tana ingo tuatahi ko Te Manu. Whanau mai ia Pātiki tana māma. Paratene Te Manu was my great-grandfather. He was born around about the 1800s in this Ngātiwai area. He was named Te Manu because of the sounds of the birds at that particular time of his birth. His grandfather was Rangituku Waho, and his father was Tuatahi. Paratene had no children of his own, but he had one whāngai, which was Rihipaia. In the early days, whaling ships called into Ngunguru Bay, and they would, in today's terms, hook up with the local ladies. And this is how Rihipaia was born. She was born to Mate Te Kura. She was half-caste, and people didn't like that. And she was to be put away, and Paratene didn't want that. And he took off his korowai and covered her with it. He was a man of honour, and he gave all his lands to Rihipaia because he had no issue. He was a rangatira, a real warrior. He took part in many of Hungi's exploits, north and south. He was the last one that we know of in our area to take part in the kaitangata business of those days. Apart from his exploit around the coast of New Zealand, he went to England in 1860-something on the Ida Ziegler. I understand they were exploited on their trip. They weren't treated very well, but they got there okay. When they arrived at the docks in England, there was a circus team from Europe disembarking at the same time. And they noticed animals that they had not seen before. But he did inquire about why were those lions in particular cages. And it was explained to him that they were the Queen's lions, and that was a symbol of British authority. He said, well, if that's the fierce fighting symbol of the British Empire, I'm from Aotearoa, and I'd like to fight that lion. And they said, oh no, you couldn't possibly do that, it'd kill you, it's a man-eater. However, he insisted and said, no, I've got my spear. I fought people with muskets, tomahawks, mere, all those sorts of things. I can handle this lion. But he did have a bit of a second thought. And he said, now look, I don't think I'd like to upset the Queen by killing her lions. Paratene Te Manu was very impressed with the Duke of Wellington, and because he was a warrior, he adopted the name Wellington, and also Wellington's lieutenant, who was Broughton, and that was a transliteration of Paratene Broughton. In their travels around the UK, he was impressed by the Christianity and the way they were tilling the soil over there. So he brought the Bible back for Christianity, and the plough as a symbol of what you could do with tilling the soil and for the betterment of the people. On his return, my grandmother noticed a distinctive change in his attitude towards his other life and sort of dropping his warrior status. He gifted the land for a school, which was a native school in the beginning. His portrait hangs in the school today. He spent a lot of time with his koroe on in front of the school, listening to the teachings and the goings-on. So he was certainly a different man. Paratene died in 1897. He was in his 90s, I understand. His legacy carries on in the religion, Christianity, the marae, which is built on his land, carrying his name, and education. One of our whānau, Paula Morris, has written a book, Rangatira, and it also features a portrait on the cover. Ki ngā rangatira, ngā kaimahi o Aotearoa. Kia tau ki te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi Māori. Kia ora, pai no tātou.
Gottfried Lindauer, zejména jako umělec spjatý zejména tedy s tou náboženskou a historickou malbou. Gottfriedovým strýcem byl Josef Ondřej Lindauer, velice významný českobudějovický biskup. A jeho prasynovcem byl Josef kardinál Beran. Někdy v 16 letech se Gottfried rozhodl, že sám a pěšky odejde do 350 kilometrů vzdálené Vídně, kde se bude ucházet o studium na tamnější vídeňské akademii.
Heke Ngapua was born in Kaikwe and grew up there for a period of time, then was sent to Pakaraka with his whanaungas to be educated at the Pakaraka school. And in that period of time, Sir George Grey had a plan how to assimilate Māori, ngā uri o ngā rangatira. So his master plan was to take all the sons of the chiefs, of the disenfranchised chiefs, and send them off to school to St. Stephen's to be educated and turn them into English gentlemen so that they would actually be law-abiding citizens and would follow the regime. His father, Hone Ngapua, was a rātira. He signed his marriage certificate, occupation, chief. You know, there's a good occupation. He groomed his son to be the man he was. In true tikanga, and people that understand tikanga, if your son casts a big shadow, the father must be quiet, because you can't have a father and son at the same level. His mother, Krani Nurangi, was a powerful woman. She lived to the age of 93. Hone Ngapua was her kaumatu, her firstborn. That was her oldest child. That was her hope. They had 15 children, but only 3 survived. They followed the faith called Ngakai. So the religion was based on the snake in the Garden of Eden, but also the snake and the staff of Moses. And the snake said, "Maminga ngā pākea, koratake ngā pākea, titiro ki te rangi, te karota whenua." The ngākahi itself kept him grounded with his people and with his culture, because he was actually living in a foreign environment away from his family. In that period of time, you know, going to Wellington was the same as being in London or something like that. He was so far away.
So he entered Parliament in 1893. It was a transition time as far as Māori MPs in Parliament were concerned. There was the older group who tended to be MPs who weren't fluent in English, who didn't have much in the way of Pākehā education, and they seldom spoke in the House. The next generation, people like Buck and Nat and Pomare and so on, were highly educated in the Pākehā world, and they felt comfortable in both worlds. Ngapua had a foot in each camp, very well versed in the traditional world, but also extremely articulate. He had legal training, he was a qualified translator.
Undoubtedly, the natives, when this matter of the treaty was put before them in 1840, did not wish to sign such a document.
The big achievement, funnily enough, was a failure, and that was his Native Rights Bill. He's the only MP in the history of New Zealand to introduce a bill into Parliament to create a separate Māori Parliament. Nowadays that would be radical. In the 1890s that was unheard of, to the point where a lot of the Pākehā members of Parliament stood up and either walked out or turned their back to him. But he wanted to make the point, this idea of kōteitanga, the idea that there could be this pan-tribal unity and that Māori could be completely self-governing, was what drove him into Parliament, and he wanted to make that point in front of all the leaders in the country.
The kōteitanga movement started to roll, where rangatiras like Mangakāia from Waipiro Bay, you know, Ngāti Pro standing up and saying, I'm going to give away my whakapapa, I'm going to give away my identity, I'm going to give away my roia, I'm going to give away my ego and my mana for the unity of Māori. So by stripping himself bare of everything, all those things, and just focusing on unity and breathing life back into a people that were depressed.
The dog tax war, so-called war, involved a group of Māori in Waimā led by Hone Toia, who said they resented the idea of their dogs being taxed, and Toia very famously said if they tax dogs now, they'll tax people next. What happened is that he was prepared to take up arms against the government, and Seddon's response was not to negotiate but to send troops. So there was every risk, this is in 1898, every risk that a war was going to erupt. Ngapua raced to Waimā, and here he was, still in his 20s, he ordered Hone Toia to put down his weapons. Had it not been for that intervention, there would have been bloodshed for sure, because both sides were heavily armed and prepared to fight. And you can see from his letter books, people would write letters saying, we need our farm fence fixed, our cattle's died, we need to replace them. And he'd just write out a cheque, or he'd go and provide it, or he'd arrange this sort of thing. So he was using all his personal funds to pay for other people. He was travelling as far as he could, as often as he could, to help people, and it just wore him down. Ngapua's final election was about 49 days before he died. Ngapua got, obviously, the majority. But he was sick. Everyone knew by that stage he had tuberculosis. It was at a bad stage, but he was still working.
He died alone, yeah, which is sad. He was a wharengaro, he had no children, you know. He didn't enjoy the pleasures of the flesh, he had no woman. From that period of time, from when he went to St. Stephen's to the time of death, he was away from us, his whole life. And we can't conceptualise with 21st century eyes the commitment that those rangatiras, not only Hone Heke Ngapua, but all those kaumātus rangatira of that time had to their people, because they had true love, you know, a love that we can't comprehend, a love of their race, a love of their people, a love of their hapu and their iwi.
At his tangi, his mother said that he had been the husband of Ngāpui, that's how she put it. That's who he was married to. He was married to the iwi.
He was buried at Aparama Church, and the Crown said that we won't put a monument up, we won't honour him, we will make him invisible. His mother again took up the charge to actually have the monument to honour him. On that monument it says, he wairua tohe, an argumentative spirit, a fighting spirit. Hone Heke Ngapua to our whānau is a symbol of integrity, you know, something that we all try to aspire to, but, you know, always fall short of the mark. He was a man that you can't recreate. We have all our human failings, where a man like that lived for a cause.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.